The great hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their floating chairs, arranged in perfect circles around the central speaking platform. The dome above them showed the stars of 1,000 systems, each one a reminder of the vast empire they controlled. Ambassador Zekthal stepped onto the platform. His purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his four arms moved in patterns that showed his deep worry. The Vorthak Empire had ruled space lanes for over 300 years. They were known for their strength and their ships that could destroy entire planets. But today, Zekthal looked afraid. "Fellow council members," he began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. "We face a threat unlike any we have seen before. Our trade routes are no longer safe. Our merchant ships disappear without a trace. Our military patrols send distress signals that cut off mid-sentence." A low murmur ran through the crowd. The Caltharian delegate, her crystal body reflecting rainbow colors, leaned forward. "Surely you exaggerate, Ambassador. What force could challenge the combined might of our fleets?" Zekthal's large black eyes swept across the assembly. 3 days ago, the cargo vessel Prophet's Dream was found drifting near the Centauri jump point. Half the crew was dead. The survivors were found huddled in the emergency pods, speaking of a ship that appeared from nowhere. He activated a holographic display above the platform. The image showed a massive black warship, its hull scarred with battle damage, but somehow more frightening because of it. Strange symbols were painted on its side in white letters that hurt to look at. "They call it the UES Retribution," Zekthal continued. "The survivors described it as a moving shadow, 3 times the size of our largest battle cruisers. But size is not what makes this ship dangerous. It is who commands it." The reptilian council leader hissed through his sharp teeth. "Get to the point, Vorthak. What species dares challenge us?" "Humans." The word fell like a stone into still water. Silence spread through the hall. Many delegates had never heard the term before. Others remembered it from old reports, filed away and forgotten. "Impossible," declared the insectoid queen, her mandibles clicking. "Humans are a primitive species from the outer rim. We cataloged them years ago. They barely have spaceflight. Their weapons are crude chemical explosives." Zekthal's expression grew darker. "That was our mistake. We underestimated them then. We are paying for that mistake now." The hologram changed to show star charts. Red dots marked dozens of locations across 3 sectors. Each dot represented an attack, a missing ship, or a destroyed military outpost. "The pattern is clear," the ambassador explained. "They strike our supply lines, our isolated bases, our patrol ships. They avoid large fleets and fortified positions. But when they do attack, they win. Every single time." A nervous laugh came from the Aquatic Federation representative. "Surely you jest. 1 ship against the entire Galactic Council? It is impossible." "Tell that to Admiral Corks Nul," Zekthal replied coldly. His battle group of 12 ships encountered the Retribution near the Horsehead Nebula. Only 1 ship escaped. The Admiral himself was captured and later released with a message. The hall erupted in shocked voices. 12 Vorthak warships represented enough firepower to level continents. The idea that 1 human ship could defeat them seemed beyond belief. "What message?" demanded the council leader. Zekthal hesitated before answering. "Leave human space alone or face the consequences." The laughter that followed was harsh and bitter. Several delegates spoke at once, their voices mixing into a chaos of disbelief and anger. "Silence!" The council leader's voice boomed through the hall. "Ambassador, show us proof of these claims. Show us how primitive humans defeated our finest military commanders." The hologram shifted again. This time, it showed battle footage recovered from the surviving Vorthak ship. The images were grainy and broken, but they told a clear story. The human ship moved like a living thing. It twisted and turned through space in ways that defied everything the aliens knew about combat, while the Vorthak ships fired their massive energy weapons in straight lines. The Retribution danced between the beams like it knew where they would strike before they were fired. The human ship's weapons were different too. Instead of trying to overpower the alien shields with brute force, they fired precisely targeted shots that found weak points in the enemy armor. Explosions bloomed along the Vorthak hulls in exactly the right places to disable engines, weapons, and life support. But what impressed the watchers most was the timing. Every human attack came at the perfect moment, when enemy ships were turning or reloading or distracted. It was like watching a master musician play a deadly song. "How do they do it?" whispered the Caltharian delegate. Zekthal manipulated the controls to zoom in on the human ship's bridge. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see figures moving with quick, sure motions. The beings were smaller than most aliens, with soft skin and fragile-looking bodies, but they worked together like parts of a single mind. "Our intelligence suggests they have a captain named Jake Morrison," the ambassador continued. "Unlike our command structure, where the leader gives orders and subordinates obey, human crews seem to function as a team. Each member contributes ideas and solutions. They adapt their tactics in real time during battle." The council leader's eyes narrowed. "You make them sound like some kind of super beings." "Not super beings," Zekthal corrected. "Just different from us. We build bigger ships, more powerful weapons, stronger shields. Humans build better crews." The hologram showed more footage. The human ship rescuing survivors from destroyed vessels, even enemy survivors. Medical bays where human doctors treated wounded aliens with the same care they gave their own people. Engineers working side by side with freed alien slaves to repair. Captured ships. "They do not fight for conquest," the ambassador observed. "They fight for something else. Something we do not understand." "What do they want?" asked the insectoid queen. "According to the prisoners they have freed, they want us to leave them alone. They want other species to be free to choose their own paths. They want an end to what they call our cosmic tyranny." The hall fell silent again. The concept was alien to most of the delegates. They had built their civilization on the idea that stronger species ruled weaker ones. It was the natural order of things. "Ridiculous," declared the reptilian leader. "Strength rules the galaxy. It always has." "Perhaps," Zekthal replied. "But strength comes in many forms. The humans have shown us a kind of strength we never imagined. The strength of beings who refuse to give up, no matter the odds." He paused to let his words sink in before continuing. 3 human ships escaped our initial contact with their species. The other 2 have never been found. But this one ship, this Retribution, has become a symbol. Freed slaves speak of it in whispers. Oppressed colonies sing songs about it. Even some of our own people have begun to question our methods. The council leader stood, his massive form casting shadows across the platform. "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" "We have 3 choices," Zekthal replied. "We can ignore them and hope they go away. We can negotiate with them as equals. Or we can hunt them down and destroy them before their rebellion spreads." "The first option is clearly impossible," the leader stated. "They have already proven they will not be ignored. And the second option is unthinkable. We do not negotiate with primitives." "Then we hunt them," the insectoid queen declared, her wings buzzing with excitement. "We show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge the natural order." Nods and sounds of agreement rippled through the hall. But Zekthal looked troubled. "I must warn you," he said quietly. "This will not be like our previous campaigns. The humans will not fight the way we expect them to fight. They will not follow the rules we are used to. And if we fail to stop them, their example might inspire others to rebel." The council leader's laugh was cold and confident. "Let them try. The galaxy has one rule: the strong survive and the weak serve. These humans will learn that lesson, or they will die. But as the delegates filed out of the hall, many of them wondered if perhaps the humans had already learned a different lesson entirely. And that lesson was proving to be far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 3 years earlier, the first alien ship had appeared in Earth's solar system like a silver bird against the black of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, then just a prototype heavy cruiser on its maiden voyage around Jupiter. He was younger then, his brown hair not yet touched with gray, his blue eyes bright with wonder instead of hardened by war. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panels as she tried to make sense of the readings. "Sir, it's nothing like our ships. The energy signatures are completely alien. Morrison." Stepped closer to the main view screen. The ship that appeared before them was beautiful, in a way that human engineering had never achieved. It curved and flowed like something grown rather than built. Lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that seemed almost like breathing. "Open all communication frequencies," Morrison ordered. His voice carried the steady calm that had made him one of Earth's youngest ship captains. "If they're trying to talk to us, I want to hear it." The response came immediately. Not in words, but in mathematical concepts that appeared directly in their minds. The aliens had technology that could translate thoughts across species barriers. Within minutes, they were having actual conversations with beings from another world. The alien captain introduced himself as Vel Naran of the Galactic Federation. His species, the Etherians, looked like tall, graceful humans made of living crystal. When he spoke, his words seemed to sing. "We have watched your species with great interest," Vel Naran explained through the thought link. "Your rapid development, your curiosity about the stars, your potential for growth. The Federation would like to welcome humanity into the galactic community." Morrison felt his heart race. First contact with an alien civilization, and they were offering friendship. It seemed too good to be true. It was. The talks that followed took place on a space station built specifically for the meetings. Earth sent its best diplomats, scientists, and military officers. Admiral Lisa Parker led the delegation, her silver hair and sharp mind making her the perfect choice for such historic negotiations. The Federation representatives were impressive. Dozens of species, each more amazing than the last. The Vorthak with their 4 arms and purple skin, the insectoids with their complex hive minds, the aquatic peoples who lived in water-filled suits. They spoke of wonders beyond imagination. Planets made of crystal, stars that sang, entire systems converted into works of art. Humanity would begin as a junior member, explained the Federation Council representative, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal. "This is standard. For all new species, you would receive access to our technology, our trade networks, our protection. In return, you would contribute to the common good of all Federation members." The terms seemed reasonable at first. Humanity would share their unique perspectives and abilities. Earth would become part of something greater than itself. The stars would finally be within reach. Admiral Parker asked the right questions. What exactly did junior member mean? What would humanity be expected to contribute? How would disputes be resolved? The answers came wrapped in beautiful language that hid ugly truths. Junior members had few rights and many obligations. They provided raw materials and labor to senior species. They followed Federation law without having a voice in making those laws. "Think of it as a learning period," Vel Naran assured them. "Once humanity proves itself ready for full membership, you will have equal voice in all decisions." "How long does this learning period typically last?" Parker asked. The pause before the answer should have warned them. "It varies by species. Some achieve full membership within a few hundred years." Morrison, watching from the back of the room, saw Parker's jaw tighten. Humans lived for perhaps 80 years on average. A few hundred years meant multiple generations born and dying under alien rule. But the Federation's technology was seductive. They demonstrated medical treatments that could cure any disease, energy sources that could power entire continents, ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. They offered answers to questions humanity had been asking since they first looked up at the stars. The debates on Earth raged for months. Some leaders saw the opportunity of a lifetime. Others smelled a trap wrapped in pretty promises. Morrison found himself in the second group, along with Admiral Parker and several other military commanders. "Something feels wrong about this," Morrison told Parker during one of their private meetings. "They're too eager, too generous. Why do they need us so badly?" Parker nodded grimly. "I've been thinking the same thing. I've run psychological profiles on every Federation representative we've met. They all show the same patterns. They're used to being obeyed without question. They expect compliance, not cooperation." The decision came down to a global vote. Humanity chose to join the Federation by a narrow margin, swayed by promises of medical miracles and unlimited energy. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the solar system. Morrison watched from the bridge of the Retribution as the first Federation ships entered Earth orbit. They were massive vessels, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. The sight should have been inspiring. Instead, it made him feel like he was watching the beginning of the end. The first year of Federation membership went exactly as advertised. Diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries disappeared overnight. Clean energy replaced fossil fuels. Hunger became a thing of the past. Earth entered a golden age of prosperity and health. But there were signs that all was not well. Human. Scientists who asked too many questions about Federation technology found themselves reassigned to other projects. Human engineers who tried to improve upon alien designs were politely told to stick to their assigned tasks. Human artists whose work contained themes of independence or rebellion discovered their pieces being quietly removed from galleries. The truth began to emerge in the second year. Federation surveys had identified Earth as rich in rare minerals needed for their technology. The asteroid belt contained metals that were worth more than entire star systems. Most importantly, humans themselves had qualities that made them valuable. "They're not inviting us to join their club," Admiral Parker explained to Morrison during a secret meeting. "They're preparing to harvest us." The evidence was overwhelming once they knew what to look for. Similar patterns on dozens of other worlds, species that had been promised partnership and given servitude, planets stripped of resources and populations relocated to serve Federation needs. The plan for humanity was already in motion. Earth would be mined for its rare elements. Humans would be relocated to factory worlds where their creativity and adaptability would be put to use solving problems for their alien masters. The few who resisted would be dealt with quietly and efficiently. Morrison felt sick as he read the classified reports that Parker had obtained through her intelligence contacts. "How long do we have?" 6 months, maybe less," Parker replied. "They're already moving mining equipment into the outer system. Once that's in place, they'll present us with a fait accompli: accept relocation or face the consequences." The resistance formed quickly but quietly. Morrison used his position as captain of the Retribution to recruit trustworthy crew members. Parker used her authority to stockpile supplies and weapons. Other military commanders around the world began making similar preparations. The plan was desperate but simple. When the Federation made their move, humanity would fight back. They couldn't win a direct war against such overwhelming technology, but they might be able to save some portion of their species and their freedom. The end came sooner than expected. Federation ships surrounded Earth and began broadcasting new instructions. All human governments were dissolved. All human military forces were ordered to surrender their weapons. All human populations were to report to processing centers for relocation to their new homes. Most of humanity complied. They had little choice. The alternative seemed to be destruction, but some ships were already in deep space when the orders came. Morrison had taken the Retribution on what was officially a training mission to the edge of the solar system. 2 other human vessels, the destroyer Defiance and the frigate Liberty, were conducting similar exercises. When the Federation ultimatum was broadcast, the 3 ships found themselves the only free human military forces left in existence. "This is Admiral Parker to all vessels," came the transmission from Earth. Her voice was calm but filled with determination. "Execute Plan Exodus. Repeat, execute Plan Exodus." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Lieutenant Amy Chen at Communications, her Asian features set in resolve. Chief Engineer Pete Rodriguez, sweat beading on his dark forehead as he prepared the ship's experimental systems. Weapons Officer Carl Turner, his hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what they faced. "You all heard the Admiral," Morrison said quietly. "We're no longer Earth Defense Force. As of right now, we're the human resistance. Anyone who wants to surrender to the Federation can take a shuttle back to Earth. No questions asked, no judgment given. Not a single person moved from their station." "Very well, then," Morrison continued. "Amy, set course for the rendezvous. Point. Pete, bring all systems online. Carl, load all weapons. We have a war to fight." As the Retribution turned away from Earth and 2 years had passed since the fall of Earth, and the UES Retribution had become something the Federation had never encountered before, a ghost that struck from the darkness of space itself. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the ship's modified engineering section, watching Chief Engineer Pete Rodriguez work his magic on systems that should not have been able to function together. Alien technology hummed alongside human machinery, held together by ingenuity, desperation, and no small amount of luck. "How are we looking, Pete?" Morrison asked, running his hand along a console that had been cobbled together from parts of a dozen different alien ships. Rodriguez wiped grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days. His dark eyes held the tired satisfaction of a man who had worked miracles so often they had become routine. "The stealth system is running at 98% efficiency, Captain. The Calitarian phase shifters are playing nice with our human power grid, and the Vorthax sensor scramblers are working better than their original designers ever intended." Morrison nodded with approval. The Retribution bore little resemblance to the ship that had fled Earth 2 years ago. Every battle, every raid, every encounter with Federation forces had left its mark. But more than that, it had left opportunities. Humans, Morrison had discovered, were very good at taking things apart and putting them back together in ways their original creators never imagined. Every disabled Federation ship became a source of technology to add to their growing collection. Every freed prisoner brought knowledge of alien systems and weaknesses. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice of Commander Amy Chen over the ship's communication system. "We have a situation." Morrison made his way through corridors that had been expanded and modified to accommodate the ship's growing crew. What had started as 400 humans had grown to include freed alien slaves, defectors from Federation worlds, and rescued prisoners from a dozen species. The Retribution had become more than a warship. It had become a symbol of resistance. The bridge buzzed with quiet activity. Amy Chen stood at the central command station, her black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her dark eyes focused on the tactical display. In the 2 years since Earth's fall, she had grown from a promising young officer into one of the finest tactical minds in human space. "What do we have, Amy?" Morrison asked as he took his position in the captain's chair. "Long-range sensors are picking up a Federation convoy," she reported, manipulating the holographic display to show their current position. 3 heavy cargo vessels, 2 escort frigates, and what looks like a troop transport. They're following standard shipping lane protocols through the Betelgeuse sector. Morrison studied the formation. On the surface, it looked like any other supply convoy moving goods between Federation worlds, but something about it felt wrong. "What's your assessment?" he asked. Amy's fingers danced across her controls, pulling up additional data. The cargo. Manifests are classified, which is unusual for routine supply runs. The escort is heavier than normal, and the troop transport is running with full communications blackout. Most interesting of all, they're taking a route that adds 6 hours to their journey for no apparent reason. They're avoiding something, Morrison concluded. Or someone. Lieutenant Sam Davis looked up from his intelligence station. The young man had proven to have a gift for reading between the lines of Federation communications, a skill that had saved their lives more than once. "Sir, I've been monitoring Federation military channels. There's been a lot of chatter about increased security for prisoner transfers in this sector." Morrison felt his jaw tighten. Prisoner transfers meant captured humans or aliens who had been caught helping the resistance. The Federation had learned to treat such prisoners as valuable, intelligence assets rather than simple criminals. "How certain are we that this is a prisoner convoy?" he asked. Sam consulted his displays. 87% confidence, sir. The ship configurations, the routing, the security measures, they all match previous prisoner transfer operations. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Dr. Helen Brooks sat at the science station, her blonde hair showing premature streaks of gray from the stress of their endless fight. Her expertise in alien technology had been crucial to their survival, but she had also become their best source of intelligence on Federation weaknesses. At the weapons station, Lieutenant Carl Turner ran pre-flight checks on their hybrid human-alien weapon systems. The big man had lost his entire family when Earth fell, and he channeled his grief into a deadly precision that made him one of the most feared gunners in the galaxy. "Helen, what can you tell us about the ships in that convoy?" Morrison asked. "Doctor." Brooks called up technical specifications on her screen. "The cargo vessels are standard Vorthak heavy transports, thick armor, powerful shields, but limited maneuverability. The frigates are newer models, probably equipped with the latest sensor arrays and weapons. The troop transport is interesting. It's been modified with additional power systems and enhanced life support." "Enhanced life support suggests they're carrying live cargo," Amy observed. Morrison weighed their options. Attacking Federation convoys had become their specialty over the past 2 years, but this one felt different. The escort was stronger than usual, and something about the whole operation suggested it was more important than a routine prisoner transfer. "Sam, any intelligence on high-value prisoners being moved in this sector?" The intelligence officer's face went pale as he read through classified intercepts. "Sir, there are reports of a mass arrest on the human colony world of New Haven. The Federation claimed they were shutting down a terrorist cell, but the numbers don't add up. They arrested over 300 people, including women and children." Morrison felt cold anger settle in his chest. New Haven had been one of the smaller human colonies established just 5 years before first contact. It was primarily an agricultural world, home to families who had wanted to build a simple life among the stars. "They're not terrorists," he said quietly. "They're farmers and teachers and shopkeepers, people whose only crime was being human." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The Federation wasn't just moving prisoners. They were relocating an entire human community to who knew what fate. "Amy, tactical assessment. Can we take them?" Commander Chen studied the convoy formation with the eye of someone who had learned warfare the hard way. "It won't be easy. Those frigates can match. Our firepower and the cargo ships are tough enough to survive a lot of punishment. If we go in directly, it's going to be a slugging match." "But," Morrison prompted, hearing the unspoken continuation in her voice, "but we're not a typical warship anymore," she said with a slight smile. "We have advantages they won't be expecting." Morrison looked at the tactical display, seeing not just the enemy ships but the space around them. The convoy was passing through an asteroid field, one of dozens scattered throughout this sector. Dense enough to hide a ship, sparse enough to allow navigation by someone who knew what they were doing. "Pete, how quickly can we reconfigure the stealth systems?" Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. "Give me 20 minutes, and I can make us invisible to everything but a direct visual scan. 30 minutes, and I can mask our energy signature to look like a piece of space debris. Helen, what do you know about Vorthak cargo ship sensors?" Dr. Brooks consulted her extensive database of alien technology. "Standard configuration has blind spots above and below the ship. They rely on their escorts to cover those areas. The sensor arrays are powerful but designed for long-range detection, not close-range identification." Morrison began to see the shape of a plan. It was risky, complex, and required split-second timing. In other words, exactly the kind of operation that the Retribution specialized in. "Amy, plot an intercept course that brings us up through the asteroid field. I want us positioned directly beneath the lead cargo ship when they pass through grid." 774. "Aye, sir. Course plotted. Carl, reconfigure the weapons for close-range precision work. I want to be able to disable their engines without destroying the ships." "Already on it, Captain." "Sam, start monitoring their communications. I want to know the instant they realize something is wrong." "Understood, sir." Morrison activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have located a Federation prisoner convoy carrying captured civilians from New Haven Colony. We are going to intercept that convoy and free those prisoners. This will not be an easy fight, but it is a necessary one. Every person we save today is someone who will live to see humanity free again." He paused, looking around the bridge at his crew. These people had followed him across half the galaxy, fighting impossible odds and winning through sheer determination and teamwork. "The Federation thinks they can break our spirit by taking our people prisoner. They think fear will make us surrender. They're about to learn how wrong they are. All stations prepare for silent running." The Retribution's lights dimmed as non-essential. Systems powered down. The ship's signature faded from sensors as the stealth systems engaged. On the main view screen, the Federation convoy continued on its course, unaware that Death Wall. Admiral Crix Vor stood in the command center of his flagship, the massive dreadnought Eternal Dominance, studying holographic displays that showed the positions of his 12 warships. The Vorthak admiral was old even by his species' standards, his purple skin marked with the ritual scars that showed his many victories. His 4 arms moved in complex patterns as he reviewed the trap he had spent months preparing. "Status report," he commanded, his deep voice carrying the authority of someone who had conquered entire star systems. Captain Yolt Kem, his tactical officer, manipulated the display to show their current positions. "All ships are in position. Within the Kepler Nebula, Admiral. The electromagnetic interference is masking our energy signatures perfectly. Long-range sensors show no sign of the human vessel." Crix Vor's black eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The nebula was perfect for his purposes. Its swirling gases and electrical storms would hide his fleet while providing multiple escape routes if the plan failed. But he had no intention of failing. "And our bait?" he asked. "The convoy is proceeding along the designated route," Yolt Kem reported. 3 cargo vessels carrying actual human prisoners from the mining worlds, just as you ordered. If this human captain is what the reports claim, he will not be able to resist attempting a rescue." The Admiral nodded approvingly. He had studied every report about the ship they called the Retribution, analyzed every attack, every rescue, every tactical decision made by its captain. The humans fought with emotion rather than pure logic, and emotion could be used against them. "Morrison will come," Crix Vor stated with certainty. "The humans cannot abandon their own kind. It is both their greatest strength and their fatal weakness." The convoy had been carefully prepared, real human prisoners to make the bait genuine, lighter escorts than usual to make the target appear vulnerable, but hidden within the cargo holds were additional weapons and shield generators. When the Retribution attacked, the trap would spring. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we are receiving the signal from the convoy. A single ship has been detected approaching their position. Krix Vor's predatory smile showed rows of sharp teeth. Excellent. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Light years away, Captain Jake Morrison watched his tactical display as the Retribution closed on the Federation convoy. Everything appeared to be proceeding according to plan. The enemy ships maintained their formation, showing no sign that they had detected the approaching human vessel. Range to target? Morrison asked. 2 million kilometers and closing, reported Amy Chen from her position at the tactical station. Still no indication they've spotted us. Morrison felt the familiar tension that came before battle. Something about this engagement felt different from their previous raids. The convoy's route, the composition of the escort, even the timing seemed almost too convenient. Sam, any change in their communications? He asked. Lieutenant Davis monitored the enemy transmissions carefully. Standard convoy chatter, sir. Navigation updates, status reports, nothing unusual. Dr. Helen Brooks looked up from her science station with a frown. Captain, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from those cargo ships. The power output is higher than normal for vessels of that class. Morrison moved closer to study her. Readings. How much higher? About 30% above standard, she replied. It could be enhanced life support for the prisoners, but it's more power than would be needed for that purpose. Warning bells began to sound in Morrison's mind. In 2 years of fighting the Federation, he had learned to trust his instincts. When something felt wrong, it usually was. Amy, tactical assessment of the escort formation. Commander Chen studied the enemy positions with the eye of someone who had survived dozens of space battles. It's textbook formation for convoy protection, but there's something odd about their positioning. The frigates are maintaining perfect station keeping, which suggests their crews are very experienced. More experienced than we usually see on convoy duty? Morrison asked. Much more experienced. These aren't regular escort pilots. These are military veterans. Morrison felt the pieces of a puzzle beginning to form in his mind. Enhanced power systems, experienced crews, a route that seemed designed to draw them in. It all pointed to one. Conclusion. Red alert, he ordered. All hands to battle stations. The bridge lighting changed to red as alarms sounded throughout the ship. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency to their combat positions. After 2 years of constant warfare, the Retribution's crew could go from silent running to full combat readiness in less than 3 minutes. Captain, Sam Davis called out, his voice tight with concern. I'm picking up multiple energy signatures coming online within the Kepler Nebula, large ones. Morrison felt ice form in his veins. How many? 12 ships, sir. Dreadnought class, or larger. The trap was revealed. Morrison realized they had been expected possibly for weeks. The convoy wasn't the real target. The Retribution was. Amy, emergency course change. Get us out of here. Already plotting escape vectors? She replied, her fingers flying over her controls. But sir, those are real human prisoners on those ships. The sensor readings confirm it. Morrison closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command press down on him. The smart, tactical decision was to run. The Retribution was outnumbered 12-1 by ships that were each larger and more heavily armed than they were. Staying meant almost certain destruction, but those were his people in the cargo holds of those ships. Humans who had already suffered under Federation rule, who were counting on him to save them even if they didn't know he was coming. Captain, Amy said quietly, if we run now, we might be able to escape into the outer system. The nebula's interference will mask our retreat. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. He saw the same conflict in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They all knew the smart play. They also all knew they couldn't live with themselves if they took it. Pete, Morrison called to engineering. How fast can you give me full power? To all systems? Already there, Captain, Rodriguez replied. But, sir, against 12 dreadnoughts, we're not going to last long in a straight fight. Then we don't fight straight, Morrison replied. He turned to Dr. Brooks. Helen, what can you tell me about the Kepler Nebula's composition? Dr. Brooks called up her sensor readings of the surrounding space. High concentrations of ionized gas, electromagnetic storms every few minutes, and dense pockets of metallic dust. It's a navigator's nightmare, but it could work in our favor. How so? The electromagnetic interference works both ways. Their sensors will be just as blind as ours once we get deep into the nebula. And those metallic dust clouds are highly reactive to certain energy frequencies. Morrison began to see the outline of a plan. It was insane, desperate, and had almost no chance of success, perfect for the crew of the Retribution. Amy, plot a course directly into the heart of the nebula. I want us in the thickest part of those dust clouds. Sir, that's extremely dangerous. One wrong move and we could fly into a gravity well or an electrical storm. The Vorthak ships are bigger and less maneuverable than we are, if it's dangerous. For us, it's suicide for them. On his flagship, Admiral Crix Vor watched in disbelief as the human ship changed course directly toward the most dangerous part of the nebula. They're running straight into the storm sector, reported Captain Yult-Kem. Admiral, no ship can survive in there. The electromagnetic interference alone will overload their systems. Crix Vor studied the tactical display with growing unease. In all his years of combat, he had never encountered an enemy who chose almost certain death over surrender. But then again, he had never fought humans before. All ships pursue and engage, he ordered. Stay in formation and maintain communication links. I want that ship destroyed before it can escape. The 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts emerged from there, hiding places like metal mountains coming to life. Their massive hulls gleamed with weapon emplacements and shield generators. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon, but as they entered the nebula's outer edges, their formation began to waver. Electrical storms played havoc with their sensors. Dense gas clouds reduced visibility to almost zero. Electromagnetic interference made communication between ships nearly impossible. The Retribution, smaller and more agile, danced between the obstacles like it belonged there. Morrison had turned the nebula's dangers into advantages, using them to level the playing field against his much larger opponents. First contact in 30 seconds, Amy reported. 3 enemy ships on intercept course. Carl, target their sensor arrays only. I want them blind, not dead. Understood, sir. The first exchange of fire lit up the nebula like lightning. The Retribution's precisely aimed shots found their marks, disabling the lead Vorthak ship's ability to track targets. In response, the enemy vessels fired massive energy beams that missed their target by hundreds of kilometers. They're firing blind, Amy observed with satisfaction. Their targeting computers can't compensate for the interference. Morrison smiled grimly. Then let's make sure they stay that way. Sam, start broadcasting false signals on all Federation frequencies. I want them chasing ghosts. The battle that followed was unlike anything in the history of space warfare. The Retribution used the nebula itself as a weapon, leading enemy ships into electrical storms that overloaded their systems, guiding. The news of Admiral Crix Vor's defeat spread through the Federation like wildfire. In council chambers across the galaxy, military leaders struggled to understand how 12 of their most powerful warships had been outfought by a single human vessel. But the defeat in the Kepler Nebula was only the beginning. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Retribution's expanded briefing room, looking at the faces of nearly 600 beings from a dozen different species. What had started as a human resistance ship had grown into something much larger, a symbol of hope for every oppressed species in Federation space. Our intelligence networks have identified 17 prisoner camps in this sector alone, Morrison explained, gesturing to the holographic star map floating above the briefing table. Each one holds thousands of beings whose only crime was wanting to be free. Commander Amy Chen stepped forward to highlight specific locations on the map. Our primary targets are the facilities on Zarion 7, Corvallis Prime, and the mining stations in the Altair system. Each represents a different type of challenge. Dr. Helen Brooks activated additional displays showing the technical specifications of each target. Zarion 7 is a maximum security political prison. Heavy shielding, automated defenses, and a garrison of elite troops. Corvallis Prime processes new prisoners before shipping them to work camps. Lower security but higher prisoner turnover. The Altair mining stations are actually mobile facilities that move between asteroid fields. Morrison studied the intelligence data with the eye of someone who had learned to see opportunity in impossible situations. 2 years of hit-and-run warfare had taught him that the Federation's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. They were predictable. The Federation expects us to hit one target at a time, he observed. They'll reinforce whichever facility seems most likely to be attacked and wait for us to walk into their trap. Lieutenant Sam Davis looked up from his intelligence station. Sir, we're also seeing increased patrol activity along all major shipping routes. They're trying to cut off our supply lines and force us into a direct confrontation. Morrison nodded. He had expected this response. Every successful raid, every rescued prisoner, every small victory had pushed the Federation closer to desperation. They were tired of being embarrassed by what they still thought of as a primitive human vessel. They want a big battle, Morrison said to his assembled crew, something decisive where they can bring their superior numbers and firepower to bear. Something that will end the rebellion once and for all. Chief Engineer Pete Rodriguez raised his hand. Captain, our ship is in good condition, but we're not a fleet. If they mass enough ships against us, there's no nebula or asteroid field that will save us. Pete's right, agreed Dr. Brooks. The modifications we've made have given us significant advantages, but we're still just one ship. The mathematics of warfare aren't on our side. Morrison walked to the front of the room, his expression thoughtful. What if we changed the mathematics? The room fell silent as the crew waited for him to explain. The Federation has been trying to figure out how one ship keeps defeating their fleets, Morrison continued. They assume we have some secret weapon, or advanced technology they don't know about. They're wrong. Our advantage has never been technological. He gestured to the mixed crew around the room. Humans worked alongside freed Caltharian slaves, Vorthak defectors, and even a few insectoid engineers who had abandoned their hive to join the cause. Our advantage is that we work together. Every species, every individual, contributing their unique strengths to solve problems that no single group could handle alone. The Federation can't understand this because they've never experienced it. Amy Chen began to see where he was going. You want to use that against them? Exactly. They expect us to run and hide, to avoid direct confrontation. Instead, we're going to give them the big battle they want. But we're going to fight it on our terms, in our way. Morrison activated a new section of the star map, showing a system on the edge of Federation space. The Proxima Centauri system. 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and 1 very important space station. The display zoomed in to show a massive orbital facility surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. Station Omega 9, Morrison explained. The Federation's primary command and control center for this entire sector. Every military operation, every prisoner transfer, every strategic decision gets processed through that station. Sam Davis whistled softly. Sir, that's not just heavily defended, it's the most secure facility in Federation space. The defensive fleet alone has 40 ships, not counting the orbital weapons platforms. 43 ships, actually, Morrison corrected with a slight smile. And I'm counting on every single one of them being there when we arrive. The briefing room erupted in startled voices as the implications sank in. Morrison was proposing to attack the most heavily defended target in the galaxy with a single ship. Captain, Amy said carefully, that's not just dangerous, it's suicide. Morrison's smile widened. Amy, when have we ever done anything that wasn't supposedly suicide? Dr. Brooks activated her displays to show the technical specifications of Station Omega 9. The defensive grid is designed to stop entire fleets. The shield generators alone could withstand a sustained bombardment from 100 ships. Even if we somehow managed to get close enough to attack, we'd never penetrate those defenses. You're right, Morrison agreed. We can't get through those shields, but we don't need to. He walked to the central display and began highlighting specific areas of the station's structure. Station Omega-9 processes all military communications for this sector. That means it has the most sophisticated computer systems in Federation. Space. Systems that need constant maintenance and regular software updates. Pete Rodriguez began to understand. You want to hack into their computers. Better than that. I want to crash their entire network. Helen, show them what you've been working on. Dr. Brooks looked uncomfortable as she activated a new set of displays. Captain, what I've developed isn't really a weapon. It's more like a computer virus, designed to exploit weaknesses in Federation software architecture. The displays showed complex code structures and data flow patterns. To most of the crew, it looked like meaningless symbols. But to those who understood computer systems, it was beautiful and terrifying. The virus is designed to spread through networked systems, Brooks explained. Once it gets into a Federation computer, it begins replicating and searching for connections to other systems. Within hours, it could theoretically crash every computer network in the sector. Amy Chen stared at the display in amazement. Helen, that's not just a tactical weapon. That's a strategic game changer. If we could disable their communications and computer systems across an entire sector, every prison camp would lose its security systems, Sam Davis added, excitement growing in his voice. Every fleet would lose coordination. Every administrative center would be cut off from command and control. Morrison nodded. But there's a catch. The virus needs to be uploaded directly to the station's main computer core. We can't transmit it remotely because of their security protocols. Someone has to physically plug it into their system. The room fell silent again as the crew realized what that meant. We have to get inside the most heavily defended facility in Federation space, Amy summarized. Not we, Morrison corrected. I do. This is a one-person job. The briefing room exploded in protests. Crew members from every species began talking. At once, all saying variations of the same thing. The captain was not going on a suicide mission alone. Morrison held up his hand for silence. This isn't up for debate. The plan requires precise timing and coordination. While I'm infiltrating the station, the Retribution will be engaging their defensive fleet in the most complex battle we've ever fought. Amy will need to keep 43 ships busy while giving me enough time to reach the computer core. Commander Chen stepped forward, her face set in determination. Sir, with respect, you're needed here on the bridge. Let me lead the infiltration team. Amy, you're the best tactical officer I've ever served with. The ship needs you more than the infiltration mission does. Dr. Brooks cleared her throat. Actually, Captain, there might be another way. The virus I've created is adaptive. If we could modify it to spread through their communication networks instead of just computer systems. Morrison looked at her with interest. Go on. If we could get close enough to transmit the virus directly to their main communication array, it would spread to every ship and facility in the sector within minutes. We wouldn't need to physically infiltrate the station. How close is close? Enough? Amy asked. Brooks consulted her calculations. Within their defensive perimeter, close enough to touch their shields. Pete Rodriguez shook his head. That's still a suicide run. No ship can survive that kind of firepower at point-blank range. Morrison studied the tactical display one more time, seeing not just the enemy positions, but the spaces between them, the timing of their patrols, the weaknesses that existed in even the strongest defense. Pete, how long would our shields last? Under concentrated fire from 43 ships. Maybe 2 minutes. 3 if we're very lucky. Helen, how long do you need to upload the virus? 90